Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the topics you're curious about, the sources you share, and extract the core insights to get you up to speed fast. Today, you've pointed us towards something really intriguing, the martial art of Tai Chi Chuan. We're diving into Erle Montaigue's book from, originally 1984, How to Use Tai Chi as a Fighting Art, which also includes some updates from a 2000 electronic version and a foreword by Danny Nasanto.
Exactly. And our mission in this deep dive is, to uncover a side of Tai Chi that might surprise you. While it's widely known for its slow, graceful movements and health benefits, we're going to explore its potential and history as a, legitimate fighting art.
Now, whether you're a seasoned martial artist yourself or maybe just fascinated by the idea, we've got you covered. We're aiming for those aha moments, the key understandings, without getting lost in a maze of unnecessary details. Okay, let's unpack this. Montague kicks things off with a really fundamental point. Any martial art that wants to stay relevant needs to be able to adapt and change.
What's fascinating here is the historical perspective. He reminds us that when many of the great classical martial arts were developing, fighting methods were still, relatively straightforward. The forms, or katas, were essentially collections of the attack and defense techniques that were common at the time. And Tai Chi, as a classical art, fits right into this picture,
Right. But he goes a step further, suggesting that some of the original masters were clever enough to build in elements that would allow practitioners to adapt as fighting styles evolved, so they wouldn't be forever stuck using outdated moves.
This brings us to the classical school of Chinese Kung Fu called Chi Chuan. Montague identifies this as having that built-in adaptability. It's become less well-known, he says, because, so much of modern Tai Chi practice focuses on its health benefits.
Which naturally leads to the question many of you might have. Can those classical Tai Chi forms really be used for fighting today? Montague suggests they might hold their own against someone who's completely untrained, maybe even a street fighter who relies on instinct rather than technique.
However, when we look at how fighting has evolved, he argues that these classical techniques would face a tougher challenge against modern trained fighters. Their attacks are often faster, they use more whipping motions, and they might not present the same opportunities for grappling that older styles were designed to exploit.
This is where he introduces a more advanced idea, something you probably won't encounter in your average Tai Chi class. Technique to gain no technique. It kind of hints at a level of mastery where you've gone beyond simply memorizing movements to a more intuitive understanding.
And to get to that higher level, Montague stresses the absolute necessity of the foundational aspect, the form, or kata. He's very clear that without a solid understanding of the form, you can't really consider what you're doing to be Tai Chi as a fighting art. It provides the essential groundwork.
Now, for those of you who are drawn to Tai Chi for its well-known health benefits, Montague addresses that directly. He explains that there are really two ways to practice. One for general exercise and well-being, and a deeper level that works with your body's energy, or qi, leading to more profound healing.
What's interesting is the story he tells about a student whose ankle injury healed in a way that conventional medicine couldn't fully explain. Montague suggests this might be connected to the flow of qi, directed by the focused practice of the Tai Chi form. Pretty amazing, huh?
Okay, let's unpack this link between the slow form and healing. Montague says that understanding the martial application of each posture in the slow form is actually key to unlocking its healing potential. It's about your mind directing that internal energy, qi, along the body's energy pathways or acupuncture meridians.
He uses a really insightful analogy here. Imagine when you're physically active, blood flow increases to those working muscles, right? Similarly, in Tai Chi, the idea is that when you mentally engage with the purpose of a movement, even a martial purpose, you can direct your qi in a similar way. Tension, however, can block this flow. So the slow, relaxed movements of Tai Chi combined with that mental visualization of how each posture could be used in a fight can almost trick the qi into flowing to areas that need healing.
Beyond the healing aspect, the form also cultivates perfect posture, which is vital for generating maximum power with minimal effort and for maintaining a sense of calm and centeredness in any situation. Definitely a plus if you ever find yourself in a confrontation, right?
Absolutely. And when it comes to actual combat, Montague emphasizes that your reactions have to be lightning fast, almost subconscious. You don't have time to consciously think through a complex sequence. He points out that in a real fight, you'll likely only use fragments of the full postures you've learned in the form, simply because of the speed and pressure of the situation. Makes sense.
This leads him to introduce Long Har Ch'uan, which translates to dragon prawn boxing. He presents this as a specific training method designed to accelerate the development of those subconscious reactions while staying true to the core principles of Tai Chi. But he's also careful to say that this isn't meant to replace the fundamental training of the form, push hands, Dalu, and Sansao.
What's intriguing about Long Har Ch'uan is the idea of using your arms almost like feelers while keeping your body slightly concave. The concept is that if someone attacks, by moving into your waist, you cause them to overextend their reach, while you remain in a closer position to launch a counterattack. He really highlights it as a way to tap into your body's natural movement patterns.
This ties into the importance of individual preference in martial arts. Montaigue makes the case for tailoring your training to the way your body naturally likes to move, observing that most people tend to rely on just a few core techniques and variations of those.
This raises a really important distinction between the controlled environment of classroom sparring, where there's an unspoken understanding of safety, and the unpredictable and potentially brutal reality of a street encounter. Montaigue even shares that he would almost prefer to face a trained martial artist over a street fighter, simply because the latter often lacks any sense of caution and attacks with raw, forceful aggression.
Wow.
Oh.
He really drives home the point that in a real fight, your reactions have to come from that deeper subconscious level, no technique in the conscious sense, and must be entirely dictated by what your attacker does. This brings us back to that core Tai Chi principle you often hear: stick to and not letting go.
Moving into the realm of guidance from past masters, Montaigue introduces the classics of Tai Chi. These are sayings and poems from those who came before, trying to put their often profound and, subconscious experiences into words. He acknowledges that it's incredibly difficult to fully capture that kind of deep understanding in language.
But he emphasizes their value as a form of guidance. However, he also warns against taking them too literally. He believes that the real understanding comes through your own dedicated training, which will eventually lead you to experience what those masters did, making the art truly your own.
What's fascinating is his perspective that your practical training should actually inform your understanding of the classics rather than trying to impose the classics onto your technique. He reiterates that principles like stick to and not letting go aren't just abstract ideas, they're best understood through consistent training methods. It's about feeling it right.
Exactly. For those of you who are just beginning your journey with Tai Chi, Montaigue suggests focusing on learning the fundamental movements and correct posture before you dive too deeply into the more abstract concepts within the classics. He believes that the true internal lessons will emerge naturally from correct practice and will be unique to each individual.
Transitioning into Chapter 1, titled Postures and Applications, Montaigue explains that the form is the very first physical method you learn, and it builds upon a foundation of qigong, which are specific breathing and energy cultivation exercises. He describes the form itself as a, flowing sequence of interconnected postures.
He then shares a really insightful observation about the depth of Tai Chi. He says that unlike some more external or harder styles of martial arts, or what you see is pretty much what you get, in Tai Chi, you're often only seeing about 10% of what's truly happening beneath the surface. He uses the example of the push-left posture, which is common in Yang-style Tai Chi.
What's fascinating about push-left is the contrast between its seemingly simple, gentle appearance and its potential for a whole range of martial applications. Montaigue describes how it could be used as a block and a simultaneous strike, or even as a setup for an elbow break or a combined block and attack, as he illustrates in the photos in his book. You can see a recurring theme emerging here. Many Tai Chi movements have this hidden duality, a potential for both defense and offense, often happening at the same time. It requires a different kind of awareness than martial arts that focus on more linear, singular movements.
Exactly. And this really highlights his point that most postures in Tai Chi carry these hidden martial meanings, making the form an abstract way of learning very real fighting techniques on a subconscious level. It's like your body is learning a language without your conscious mind fully grasping it at first.
The beauty of learning through these abstract movements, he argues, is that your subconscious mind can begin to understand their potential uses without you having to consciously think about the martial aspects. Then, as you become more proficient in the slow movements of the form, the process of translating that abstract movement into a practical fighting application becomes much quicker. It's quite elegant, actually.
And this abstract nature of the form offers a dual benefit. Not only does it teach you fighting methods at that deeper subconscious level, but it also promotes physical and mental healing through the internal energy movements, fostering a greater sense of harmony between your mind and body.
Montague then emphasizes perfect timing as absolutely crucial in martial arts. This isn't just about speed. It encompasses your balance, your distance from your opponent, how you use your weight, and how you generate power, that whole yin and yang thing. But he makes a key point. Timing isn't something you can directly force or pursue. It has to develop naturally as you consistently practice all the different aspects of Tai Chi.
Again, he advises us not to think of these posture applications as rigid rules that must be followed exactly. Instead, they should be used as training methods to help you develop the ability to use any part of the technique at any given moment. He encourages you, our listener, to really pay attention to what feels natural and effective for your own body and your own way of moving. Find your Tai Chi right.
Precisely. He stresses the importance of starting slowly and with precision, focusing on the correct direction of movement and the timing, rather than trying to generate speed right away. The ultimate goal is to learn how to use the least amount of energy possible to achieve the greatest effect. Think of it like learning to swing a golf club. You focus on the form and timing first, and the power will come later.
He suggests initially breaking down blocking movements and attacking movements into their separate components to really understand them. Then as you become more comfortable, you can start integrating them into simultaneous actions, where the block itself becomes an integral part of the attack.
He also reminds us that some of the classical Tai Chi postures hold value not just for their potential martial applications, but also for their historical significance and the health benefits they provide by focusing the mind and directing the flow of Qi. He encourages practicing these techniques with a partner to get a better sense of their application and to really identify the ones that resonate most with you, emphasizing the need to test them in scenarios that are as realistic as possible. You can't just theorize, you got to try it out.
Okay, let's get into some specific examples of these posture applications that Montague outlines in the book. Now, keep in mind that while you can't see the photos he refers to, these descriptions will give you a good sense of the detailed way he breaks things down in the source material. Let's start with the preparation posture and its application against a lunge punch.
Okay, so the defense here involves raising both arms, much like the very beginning of the slow form, to block the incoming arm. At the same time, you take a small step to the side and slightly forward. The counterattack then involves taking another step, this time behind the attacker, and using a squeezing motion with your elbows to pull down on their shoulder area, aiming to bring them down backward with a quick, sharp jerk. Simple, but effective if timed right.
Moving on to the posture called arm push to the left and its application against a face punch.
Beyond the three uses that were mentioned earlier in the book, Montague describes another way to apply this. If someone throws a left fist toward your face, you would block it with your right palm while your left palm comes up underneath for added support. This can then be followed by an open left palm strike directly to the attacker's face, which he notes is particularly effective in a situation where the attack comes from the side. Seems pretty direct.
Next up is block low to the right, holding the ball.
Montague clarifies that while some beginners might practice this posture with the lower arm palm facing up, the correct and, well, more effective way to do it is with the lower arm palm facing down. This allows you to use the harder forearm to block a left low upper punch aimed at your right rib area, which is a vulnerable spot. As you block, you would swivel slightly to your right, keeping your palm centered. Your weight would be primarily on your left leg, and you'd be blocking the attacker's arm from underneath with your left forearm, with your right palm resting on top to prevent their hand from slipping upwards. Lots of little details there.
Then we have the fundamental Tai Chi technique, ping.
Ping is often thought of as a defensive action, a kind of outward yielding energy, but Montague highlights its offensive potential. Following that low block to the right we just discussed, you can quickly grab the attacker's left wrist with your right palm, step forward with your left foot, and then attack their jaw, what he calls the mind point, with a back fist. So you can see how a defensive move can almost instantly transition into an attack. Very fluid.
Double ping follows.
If the attacker shifts their weight and throws a right low upper punch towards your left ribs, you would quickly step back and swivel to your left, using that same low block we just talked about. Then, as you step forward with your right foot, your right fist comes up from underneath your left arm in a downward back fist aimed at their chin. Importantly, your left palm remains in position to guard the attacker's right arm, anticipating their next move. Always thinking ahead.
Let's take a look at pull downward loop.
The double ping posture can smoothly transition into Lu. If someone attacks with a right or left fist, you would block using that double ping with your right arm. Your left palm then comes over the attacker's wrist, and you use your right palm to help secure the grab. From this position, you would twist their wrist in an unnatural direction and pull them downward, using the power generated from your waist. Montaigue does caution that you need to be careful when practicing this with a partner due to the risk of injury if not done correctly. Yeah, definitely want to avoid hurting your training partner.
He also mentions another application of Lu that's purely for blocking.
Yes, if you're attacked with a left low punch aimed at your right ribs, you would swivel to your right to align your body center with the attack and then slam down onto their left arm with the back of your left forearm, keeping your right arm underneath to trap their arm. Against a left side attack, you would swivel to meet the attack, drawing both arms in slightly as you turn, and then thrust both forearms downwards in a scissors-like block to catch their right arm, using the straightening of your left leg to generate power. Different tools for different jobs.
Moving on to Chi, which translates to squeeze press.
From any of the blocks or attacks we've just discussed, you can bring your left palm to the outside of your right wrist. From there, you use the lifting energy to attack their lower stomach area. This can be a powerful upward push or a sharp, snapping downward attack to their abdomen right around the diaphragm. Sounds unpleasant.
Now we have the versatile posture, sit back like monkey.
Ah, yes. This one has 3 distinct main applications that Montaigue describes. The first is as a defense against a left punch coming towards the right side of your face. You would sit back, bringing your right foot back and swiveling to your right as you block with what he describes as a limp wrist, interesting term. Almost simultaneously, you would then spring forward with your left foot and attack their jaw with a quick, snapping left jab. He notes that this should be practiced on both the left and right sides. Gotta be ambidextrous, eh?
What are the other ways to use sit back like monkey?
The second defensive application, again against that same left punch to the right side of your face, involves that initial sit back and block. But this time, you would hook your right palm over their left palm and throw their arm to your left as you swivel in that direction, shifting your weight onto your right foot. Then, you would grab their left wrist with your left palm, lift their left arm, step forward, and attack the lower left rib area with a low centrifugal back fist. Again, he emphasizes practicing this on both sides. Repetition is key, seems like.
And the third application?
The final use he describes is as a way to break free from a stranglehold. You would then follow up with an attacking push to their abdomen, which could be either a sharp, snapping push or a more upward, lifting push. Good to have options against a choke.
Montaigue also describes the sit back like monkey, as it was performed in the old Yang style.
Right. In this earlier version, when you feel a lower punch coming in, you would block it on the inside using either your forearm, then you would hook your arm underneath theirs to trap their arm. Following this, you would turn to the appropriate side, using the power of your waist to generate the throw, and you might use your other palm for added leverage in the throw, a bit more grappling involved there.
Then we have sit back ready.
When your opponent throws a right fist towards your face, you would sit back and block it with your left palm, while simultaneously attacking their eyes with the fingers of your right hand. Ouch. Alternatively, you could grab their left fist with your left palm and then use a throw, using their elbow as the leverage point. Eyes or a throw. Choices.
Let's move on to fishes in 8.
One application, against a right fist coming towards your right side, involves blocking their arm with a circular motion of your right forearm, and then simultaneously attacking their face with the heel of your right palm as your left palm moves up to take over the blocking action. Block and strike. Very Tai Chi.
And the other application of fishes in 8.
Another use is as a defense against a punch aimed at the acupuncture points under your left arm. You would block downwards with your right forearm onto your left forearm, creating a kind of scissor block. Then you would swivel to your right, pull the attacker's right palm towards your right side, and strike their throat with the knife edge of your left palm as you step forward with your left foot. He also notes that this can be done on the other side, adapting the arm movements accordingly. Throat strike. Serious stuff.
Moving on to the posture single whip.
When your opponent attacks low with a right fist towards your lower left ribs, you would block with your right hooked palm, moving it towards your right side as you swivel in that direction. Your left fingers would be pointing towards your right elbow. You would then step forward with your left foot and attack the acupuncture points under their right arm, keeping your left palm in a guarding position to protect you from a potential re-attack. He also mentions that this can be practiced on the other side, reversing the arm and leg movements. And the initial hooked palm block can also be used to block upwards against attacks aimed at your head. Versatile block.
He's specifically mentions continuing single whip for a head attack.
Yes, if a right fist is coming towards your face, you can use that hooked right palm to block it to your right, and then follow up by attacking their kidney area with your left palm. Quick transition.
Now let's discuss lift hands.
If you're attacked with a right or left fist aimed at your upper body, you would slap their wrist with your left palm while your right palm simultaneously slaps their left elbow to disrupt their arm. This is often followed by a right foot kick to their knee area, which can then lead into a backward throw. Slap, kick, throw. A nice little sequence.
A shoulder stroke is next.
If someone grabs your right arm and tries to pull you down, Montaigue advises going with their momentum. You would step into their chest and attack their chest area directly with your right shoulder. He notes that your left palm should be in a position to protect your left elbow and could also be used to push away an incoming elbow strike from the opponent, while your right palm could guard against a potential knee strike to your groin, using the whole body as a weapon there.
Let's talk about stork spreads wings.
Montaigue describes two main applications for this posture. The more commonly known one is as a defense against a left fist attack, which you would block outwards. This is then followed by two right fist attacks, which you would block downwards, and then you would deliver a kick to their knee. The less well-known application is against a left fist aimed at your face. Your right palm would block it across your body in a circular motion to your left, while your left palm comes up underneath to take over the blocking action. Your left palm continues to manage the left fist, while your right fist circles back upwards in a centrifugal punch aimed at their left temple, and your left foot simultaneously delivers a kick to their groin. Montaigue specifically emphasizes the centrifugal power generated in this punch. That second one sounds complex but powerful.
Brush knee twist step follows.
This posture can be used to block either a straight middle kick aimed at your stomach or a low punch towards your abdomen. If it's a left fist attack, your left palm would block it to your left as you step forward with your left foot. Alternatively, you could launch an attack with a right pounding palm aimed at their chest. Montaigue clarifies that this palm strike is initially relaxed but then snaps upon impact, with the fingers flicking upwards. He also mentions a more advanced application involving a back palm strike to the inside of the wrist, followed by a palm strike to specific pressure points on the neck, an arm lock, and a knee strike to points on the front of the shoulder. Wow, layers upon layers.
Next up is play the guitar.
This posture differs from lift hands in its initial defensive action. When your opponent attacks with a right fist toward your head, you would block it across to your right side using your left palm. A split second later, your right palm comes up underneath to cause the attacking arm to slide along it. Simultaneously with this, you would kick their knee with your heel, and your right palm could also deliver a punch to their face. Montaigue considers this a relatively simple, fast, and very effective fighting technique, and he notes that it's a key component of advanced Long Har Ch'uan training. Simple and effective? Sounds good.
Step forward. Parry and punch has 3 different scenarios that Montaigue outlines.
Okay, the first is against a right fist aimed at your middle area. You would circle your right fist upwards to your left side and then slam it down onto their attacking forearm as you simultaneously attack their chest or face with your left palm. The attacker's fist might then come back up in a circular motion to attack the left side of your face, which you would block with your left palm, immediately followed by a punch to their heart as you step forward. A very effective block and simultaneous attack from this last punch is against either a left or right straight punch. You would block the punch with your left palm, if it's a right punch coming in, and immediately follow up by punching their abdomen with your right fist. Lots of options within one posture name.
Pull away and push is next.
If your opponent manages to grab your right fist after an attack, you would place your left palm underneath your right forearm, pull your right palm back while simultaneously sitting back slightly, which should break their hold. You would then follow up with a push to their side, getting out of a grab.
Apparent?
If someone attempts to choke you, you would open both of your palms underneath their palms, then circle their arms around and push them away from you. Simple defense against a choke.
The quickly punching fist posture from the old Yang style involves
very rapid snapping punches and blocks. If you are attacked with either a left or a right fist, you would block it very quickly with your opposite palm in a circular motion, immediately followed by a snap punch to their lower rib area, making sure your fist snaps sharply upon contact. Speed is key there.
Finally, for this section, backwards locking palm, also from the old Yang style.
This technique is used against a low body punch, either a right or a left. As you sense the punch coming in, your opposite palm would block it to your side in a small circular motion. Then it would hook and trap their arm with a counterclockwise circular movement, which can then be developed into an arm lock or a throw. From block to lock or throw, neat.
That brings us to the beginning of the second third of the form, starting with embrace, tiger return to mountain.
Montaigue notes that this posture has the same primary application as brush knee twist step, which is a block followed by a palm strike. However, it's typically performed on the opponent's closed side, for example, if they were to attack you from behind with a right fist aimed at your kidney. You would turn, block their attack, and then strike their flank with your palm. The classical texts also describe it as pull down and split, which suggests grabbing their wrist and elbow and then using elbow leverage to execute a throw. Interestingly, the old Yang-style interpretation of this posture involves both palms facing upwards, implying the use of dangerous point strikes. So same name, different nuances.
Fist under elbow is next.
The classics tell us that this posture protects the middle joint, referring to your elbow. Montaigue explains that its application involves hammering down onto the attacker's forearm with your fist as they attack with their other fist, immediately followed by a palm strike to their face or throat. The old Yang style, however, has a different application. Blocking an attack to your face with your forearm, then quickly flicking their arm towards your other hand, which takes over the block, and finally delivering an uppercut to their face. This sequence is typically performed quickly on both sides, protecting and attacking.
Step back and repulse monkey in the new Yang style
Is used as a defense against an incoming lower attack. You would block the attack and then retaliate with a pounding palm strike aimed at their face or chest, with the power for the strike being generated by your front leg pushing you backward. Power from retreat. Interesting.
He then describes tripping repulse monkey from the old Yang style, which is quite different from the new Yang version.
Yeah, if you were attacked from behind, you would turn to block their arm and simultaneously grab it. You would then place your foot on their groin or knee and use the leverage of their arm and your foot to throw them forward. Much more of a takedown.
Part horse's mane follows.
This posture is used to defend against an attack coming from your side.
Yeah.
You would execute a double block to deflect their attack, then step behind their lead foot and attack their axilla acupuncture points, the pressure points in their armpit area, using either your thumb or a reverse knife-edge palm strike. Targeting specific points again.
Needle at sea bottom in the new Yang style is used for
breaking free from a downward hold with a sharp, jerking thrust. If someone has grabbed your wrist and is pulling you back and down, you would go with their force, turn your wrist, grab their wrist, and then poke them under their arm into their acupuncture points. He notes that this posture has a connection to fan through back, which comes later in the form, escaping a grab with a counter.
He then describes moving hands like willow tree from the old Yang style.
This posture is a multi-layered defense against various attacks. It starts by blocking a punch aimed at your head or chest using the yang or outer side of your forearm. This is followed by a back fist strike to their head, then using both forearms to block a kick aimed downwards, and finally attacking their face or neck with both of your palms. A whole sequence in one posture.
Snake coils around, also from the old Yang style.
This begins with blocking an incoming punch using both of your palms. You would then grab their wrist and use a locking technique to pull them downwards while simultaneously twisting their wrist in an unnatural direction. This would then typically be followed by using a chi technique, a focused release of energy to throw them away. Lock and throw.
Wave hands like clouds has a classical explanation.
Right. The classics say that this posture demonstrates skill with the top of the forearm, indicating its primary use for side blocks. However, it can also be used to block a low attack by deflecting it downwards with your palm, followed by an immediate back fist attack. There's also a variation for dealing with higher attacks, which involves using an upper block and then attacking the groin. Famous posture, multiple uses.
Lift hands to heaven.
This posture is used to block a front attacking fist. If the opponent then continues their attack with a low punch towards your side, you would drop your palm downwards to block while simultaneously attacking their face with your other palm. This combined movement is known as high pat on horse, block high, block low, strike high.
Drawing the bow in the mu, assumed to be a typo for new, Yang style involved.
Blocking a right fist initially with your left palm as your right palm crosses over your left arm. This blocking motion is then immediately followed by your right palm attacking their face, like drawing a bow and releasing the arrow.
Sitting like a duck from the old Yang style is used to.
Defend against a punch coming from behind you. You would turn to block their punch, then grab their wrist, and use the sinking momentum of your body to twist their wrist unnaturally downwards, bringing them down. If they then try to pull away, you would spring upwards and attack with a toe kick. Low stance defense and counter.
Separation of right and left legs.
Although the name doesn't explicitly mention it, Montaigue clarifies that this movement actually involves a kick. You would block their fist with the appropriate palm as you simultaneously deliver a kick to their kidney area or their knee, a hidden kick in the name.
Kick with left or right heel is similar in application.
It's essentially the same action as separation of right and left legs, but instead of using the ball of the foot or instep, you use your heel to strike the soft middle of their stomach. While it might seem simple, Montaigue notes that it requires significant technique to execute effectively, as there's a tendency for the foot to slide upwards rather than driving directly inwards. Heel kicks need precision.
Then there's punch to groin, which Montaigue says is the original posture that the previous kick evolved from.
If a kick is aimed at your stomach, you would block it using a hooking motion with your arm and simultaneously raise your leg. From this position, you have a few options. You could kick their other leg or their groin, or you could lift their attacking leg, causing them to lose balance and fall, and then deliver a punch to their groin. Multiple options from a kick block.
Turning block with double leaping kick from the old Yang style sounds quite acrobatic.
It is a more dynamic technique, yeah. You would block an attack coming from your rear or side, then deliver a snapping instep kick to their axilla area, their armpit. If that first kick is blocked, you would leap up and deliver a kick with your other foot to any reachable target before your first kicking leg retracts. Montaigue notes that the New Yang style uses a more straightforward right heel kick in this particular position. Old style sounds flashier.
Tiger left and right in the New Yang style involves
blocking an incoming punch and then following up with a feint attack to the head, using a phoenix eye fist, a specialized fist, where the second knuckle protrudes slightly to distract their block. Simultaneously, you would then deliver a low punch to their kidney area using the same hand configuration. Feint high, strike low, classic tactic.
The old Yang style version, hit Tiger left and right with penetration punch, is different.
Right. You would start by blocking a punch aimed at your head using a ping-shaped hand, which helps to protect your ulnar nerve. Immediately following this, you would roll your arm upwards to set up a potential point strike on their arm. Anticipating a likely low right fist attack, you would then block with a left rooking motion and immediately follow through with a snap cross punch. This is the hit dagger part. If there's a potential second attacker, you might use a back fist. If they block and then reattack with a left fist, you would block with your right forearm, then take over the block with your left palm as you deliver a penetration punch powered by a twist of your left foot. This sequence is practiced on both the left and right sides. Much more complex sequence.
Double wind goes through ears. Sounds like a very decisive technique.
It is described as quite brutal, yes. After you deliver a stomach heel kick that causes your opponent to bend forward, you would slam their head down onto your raised knee, and as they recoil backwards, you would follow up with a double punch to their temples. Montaigue acknowledges that it might seem a bit over the top, but notes that it is indeed part of the form. Yikes, definitely decisive.
Side kick from the old Yang style is presented as a defensive maneuver.
You would evade an incoming front kick by twisting your body out of the way and simultaneously poke Dimmack points, vital pressure points around their heart area. If they block this initial attack, you would grab their hand and pull them downwards using your body's momentum. As they naturally pull back to regain their balance, you would spring upwards and attack their knee with a side kick, keeping your palms raised as guards throughout the sequence. Evade, attack points, kick.
Finally, for this second third of the form, block and use double finger jab, also from the old Yang style.
This is a defense against a highly unlikely double dragon palm attack, where they attack with both palms simultaneously. You would use the knife edges of both of your palms to block their attack in a circular motion, and then immediately follow up by jabbing your fingers into vital pressure points near their abdomen. Montaigue notes that photo 114, which would likely illustrate the initial block, is missing from his book. Seems like a specific counter.
And lift hands from the old Yang style has yet another distinct application.
You would block an incoming punch with your opposite arm, then step forward with your other foot and use your free palm to deliver a strike aimed at breaking their elbow joint. Simple elbow break attempt.
We've now reached the third and final third of the form, starting with slant flying.
The classics remind us that the shoulder stroke posture comes in between the slant flying movements. Against a low right attack, you would block downwards, grab their wrist, step behind their leading leg, and then execute a throw by tripping them over your leg. Montaigue mentions that a shoulder strike might be incorporated either before or between the two slant flying movements, and notes that this is often omitted in some Yang-style practices. This sequence is performed on both the left and right sides. Throwing technique.
Fair Lady Works at Shuttles is next.
You would begin by blocking an incoming attack with one of your arms. Then your other arm takes over the defensive action, and the first palm that was blocking now moves in to attack their chest as you simultaneously step inwards, handing off the block to attack.
Snake Creeps Down has two distinct applications that Montaigue describes.
The first is a response to a left fist attack. You would block and grab their fist, then pull the opponent downwards, sire arm underneath their groin, and attack their groin area with your shoulder. The second application is against a right fist. You would block it using a pang-like movement with your right wrist, and then your left palm would grab their right elbow. You would then use your entire body weight to pull them downwards, resulting in a powerful takedown that could cause their head to strike the ground. Two very different takedowns from a low posture.
Cock stands on one leg has three different uses, according to Montaigue.
Okay, the new Yang-style application involves quickly standing up on one leg and grabbing an incoming fist attack with the corresponding palm as you simultaneously deliver a knee strike to their groin. The old Yang-style has two variations. In the first, you would block an attack with one palm and then bring your other palm over the top for a palm slap to their face while simultaneously delivering a knee strike to their groin. In the second old Yang-style variation, after the initial block, the second palm is used to grab their throat. Knee, slap, or throat grab. Options again.
Inspection of horse's mouth involves
blocking an incoming fist attack with your palm and then immediately attacking their throat with a sharp finger jab. Another throat attack.
elbow twist from the old Yang style focuses on
wrapping up an oncoming punch using both of your forearms and then utilizing your elbow as a leverage point to break the opponent's elbow joint, using your own elbow to break theirs.
hidden hand punch,
Yeah.
also from the old Yang style.
As they launch a low attack, you would step forward with your late foot, simultaneously leaping slightly and blocking their attack with your forearm. You would then track their arm and deliver a punch to their lower abdomen. Block low, punch low.
Sleeves dancing like plum blossoms is another old Yang style movement.
If you were attacked with a fist, you would leap and turn your body, blocking their attack with your forearm, while your other arm comes down in a wide, circular windmill strike aimed at their head. Evocative name. Big movement.
Step forward to 7 stars.
You would step forward into the indicated stance, execute the block, as shown in the photos in Montaigue's book, and then deliver a kick to their groin. Block and groin kick.
Riding tiger is a technique for
evading an incoming kick and simultaneously blocking it. Just evasion and block.
Finally, for the posture applications, lotus kick.
This involves simultaneously attacking your opponent's chest with both of your arms while bringing one of your legs across their lower back, the intention being to disrupt their balance and break their roots. Sounds like a sweep or takedown. Montaigue points out that this concludes the majority of the posture applications from both the new Yang style, as taught by Yang Qingfu, and the old Yang style, which was founded by Yang Luchan. He briefly touches on the historical context, explaining that the old Yang style was the slower form practice before the 1920s, and that Yang Qingfu's modifications led to the modern, widely practiced Yang style. For a more comprehensive history, he refers listeners to his book, Power Tai Chi Chuan, Book 3. Good to know the context. He reiterates his advice to approach these applications openly, and to only incorporate what feels natural and effective for your own body. He stresses the importance of mentally visualizing the martial applications during your slow-form practice, even if your primary goal is therapeutic. He also suggests that personally discovering the fighting applications can be more valuable in the long run and aligns with his school's philosophy of encouraging independent thought and practice. Make sense? Find what works for you.
Moving into Chapter 2, titled Punching and Kicking, Montaigue emphasizes that despite the more philosophical aspects often associated with Kung Fu, especially the internal styles like Tai Chi, striking with the hands and feet remains a primary and essential form of self-defense.
What's interesting is that while he acknowledges the importance of yielding and utilizing internal energy, he ultimately stresses that punches and kicks are often the most direct and efficient way to end a confrontation quickly and with the least amount of lasting harm. While grappling techniques might be necessary in certain situations, he considers a well-executed knockout punch or kick to be the kindest way to resolve a fight. Interesting perspective. Kindest.
He then brings up a really crucial point. The shock of engaging in real physical combat if you haven't actually experienced hitting or kicking another person. and he cautions about the potential for injuries to your wrists or ankles if these techniques aren't executed correctly and with proper conditioning. Something beginners need to be aware of.
He stresses the necessity for punches and kicks to be both quick and powerful, with the goal of ending a fight with the very first strike if possible. This requires proper engagement of your muscles throughout your body while avoiding any unnecessary tension in opposing muscle groups. This leads into how Tai Chi punching differs from some other martial arts. Efficiency is key.
Exactly. In Tai Chi punching, the aim is to generate maximum effect with the minimum expenditure of your own energy, utilizing the power of your entire body, not just the muscles in your arm, whole body power.
He uses a great analogy of a whip to explain how the rotation of your waist generates the rapid movement and power in your arm. He emphasizes that your fist should remain relatively relaxed right up until the moment of impact, where you then tighten it briefly. The whip analogy is really helpful.
He also points out the specific way Tai Chi practitioners often use the last two knuckles of the fist for punching, which is different from the full, tightly clenched fist used in many harder styles and in Wing Chun. He notes that with consistent practice, these two knuckles can be used to strike even hard objects without causing injury to yourself. That takes specific conditioning, I bet.
He then details the specific practice method for a Tai Chi punch. Start with a relaxed arm and palm. Initiate the movement by pushing off with your rear foot and simultaneously twisting your waist, and then close your fist lightly just before you make contact with a slight flicking motion of those last two knuckles. The whipping action is achieved by quickly retracting your fist after the strike. Relax, explode, retract.
He provides a practical way to test if you're generating power correctly on a heavy bag. For strikes aimed at the face or other bony areas, you should hear a distinct popping sound, indicating the shock of the impact with minimal swinging of the bag. For strikes aimed at softer areas of the body, you should see the bag move, but still with a limited amount of follow-through. Different feedback for different targets.
He highly recommends using a handheld striking mitt for practicing face punches, emphasizing that you should try to move the mitt as much as possible using minimal movement of your arm. He likens the necessary body action to a sneeze, a sudden, explosive release of energy that Tai Chi refers to as mahjong, like a sneeze.
Okay.
That's memorable.
He stresses the importance of always maintaining a guard with your opposite hand during punching, keeping that palm near your face for protection, and notes that your rear heel will naturally lift off the ground as you deliver the punch, which helps to engage your whole body in the movement. Guard up, use the legs.
He outlines a specific punching drill. Perform 5 punches on the mitt, focusing on perfect timing and immediately returning your guard after each strike. Start slowly to emphasize power generation and correct fist placement, and then gradually increase your speed while maintaining that same level of power and timing. The person holding the mitt should be able to feel the impact of each punch. Quality over quantity, then build speed.
He reiterates the crucial role of using your waist rotation, and not just your arm strength, to generate power in your punches. He then describes a more advanced drill using 2 mitts, where the person holding the mitts will move the second mitt immediately after the first one is struck, which helps to train both the striker's ability to follow up and the holder's awareness and reaction time. Training reaction time for both people.
Montaigue then introduces the concept of centrifugal punching in Tai Chi. Think of it as using the twisting motion of your waist to almost throw your arm out, which allows you to generate the strongest and fastest possible punches, using physics to your advantage.
He describes the main straight punch in Tai Chi, which utilizes those last 2 knuckles for impact. Despite being called straight, it actually has a slight circular motion upon contact. He notes that it's a fast and powerful punch, especially at close range, making it useful in close quarters fighting and adaptable for most stances. Straight, but not perfectly straight.
He then details the stork spreads wings punch, which he considers to be one of the most powerful, completely centrifugal, and surprisingly fast punches, especially considering its range. It's one of only 3 Tai Chi punches that specifically uses the first 2 knuckles for striking, adapting the knuckle usage based on the position of the palm for optimal impact. Importantly, like most Tai Chi punches other than a direct jab, this punch originates from a blocking movement, highlighting the Tai Chi principle of defense being inherent in the attack, powerful, and comes from a block.
Let's move on to the cross punch.
This is another Tai Chi punch that utilizes the first 2 knuckles for striking, making it effective against harder or more bony areas. It's designed to be a snapping punch rather than a pushing one, and it also starts with a block using your other hand. The fist begins in a vertical position, and the power comes from the turn of your waist, which throws your palm out. There's also a quick jerk back of your waist to create a whip-like effect, and your wrist flicks into a light fist right at the moment of impact. Another snapping, whipping punch.
Now let's discuss the back fist.
This punch utilizes the back of your knuckles for striking, which makes the concept of using a whipping motion easier to understand. You generate power by turning your waist, which throws your fist outwards, and then you quickly jerk your waist back, which whips your relaxed wrist forward. Your palm should close lightly upon impact, and the backward motion of your waist is absolutely key to generating the power. He also notes that the back fist is almost always preceded by a blocking motion using the same fist. For example, if you're throwing a right back fist, you would likely have just used your right fist to block an incoming left punch. The waist snap is crucial here.
The back power punch is described as
A very powerful punch that is completely centrifugal, meaning there's no pulling back of the arm before impact. It's typically aimed at softer areas of the body. Your arm should be completely relaxed, swinging out with the momentum generated by your body's movement. You can strike with the back of your palm or with lightly closed fist. Just pure momentum.
The back spinning fist sounds like a very dynamic technique.
It is indeed very fast and powerful, utilizing the maximum amount of centrifugal force. It's crucial to keep your arm completely relaxed to avoid turning it into an elbow strike. You can use either an open palm or a closed fist for this technique. The movement involves stepping inwards, blocking an imaginary punch, stepping across your body, and swiveling 180 degrees. The centrifugal force generated by this turn propels your relaxed arm outwards in a powerful strike. It takes practice to maintain your balance during this movement, and your upper body should remain relaxed to help you stay grounded. Your weight will naturally shift to your lead foot upon impact. Lots of potential power, but needs control.
The low reverse circle punch is designed to target
the lower abdomen and groin area. It typically requires a block beforehand and isn't as fast as some of the other Tai Chi punches. From a forward stance, you would execute a block, then perform what's called a change step, which involves withdrawing your front foot and advancing your rear foot. As you do this, your fist is drawn back in a low circular motion, and then you punch upwards with the flat palm side of your fist. Upward punch from a low circle.
Finally, for the punching techniques, we have the penetration punch.
This punch is described as being fast, powerful, and difficult for an opponent to block effectively because of its trajectory, which is curved but has less of a wide arc than some other circular punches. The sequence begins with a block to your left, and then your fist flicks out with a rotation of your waist. At the moment of impact, your small finger should be pointing slightly upwards. Sneaky trajectory.
Montaigue mentions that he's only covered a few of the easier punching techniques in the book, and that many of the more advanced ones are taught in person. He strongly advises practicing these techniques on a heavy bag by yourself, first to develop a feel for the timing, relaxation, and the generation of centrifugal force. Then you can progress to practicing with a partner who throws different kinds of attacks at you. However, he offers a word of caution against becoming overconfident, as nothing can truly replicate the unpredictability of a real fight. Solo practice first, then partner work, but stay humble.
He then moves on to emphasize the critical importance of power. He suggests practicing punching through a partner's blocks with the intention of lightly touching the target. This not only helps you develop power, but also provides valuable blocking practice for your partner, as he notes that many martial arts schools don't adequately train blocking against full power strikes. He stresses the need for control during this practice to avoid causing injury, either by pulling your punches short of the target or by using appropriate protective gear. Train power safely.
Transitioning to the topic of kicking, Montaigue asserts that it's vital for all martial artists, and especially those who practice internal styles like Tai Chi, to be familiar with a range of regular kicking techniques for self-defense. He firmly rejects the notion that if a technique isn't explicitly in the form, it shouldn't be used in a fight. Can't limit yourself to just the form.
He makes an important distinction between flashy, high kicks, which often look impressive but can leave you vulnerable, and the truly devastating effectiveness of low leg kicks. He points out that low kicks, especially those aimed at the knee or lower leg, are incredibly difficult to defend against effectively, particularly when used defensively to disrupt an opponent's attack and balance. Low kicks are practical.
He then states that Tai Chi does indeed have its own set of low, relatively simple kicking techniques, and that these are often used after the opponent has been drawn in and perhaps lulled into a false sense of security by the more emphasized hand techniques of Tai Chi. Use hands to set up kicks.
Let's start by looking at the front heel kick. While the concept of kicking straight forward with your heel might seem simple enough, Montaigue emphasizes that it's surprisingly difficult to execute correctly. The key is to thrust your waist inwards to generate the power and snap your heel directly towards the target, rather than kicking upwards or away from it. He also reminds us of a fundamental Tai Chi principle. Always use the corresponding palm movement as a block before you launch your attack. Thrust the waist, block with the hand.
Next up is the side snap or crescent kick.
This is actually the very first kick that appears in the Yang Qing Fu slow form, and it utilizes the instep of your foot for striking. The power for this kick comes from a sharp twist of your waist, which throws your lower leg outwards at speed, snapping onto the target. Montaigue suggests aiming for the knee or the kidney area, and he advises against trying to kick too high to the face with this particular technique. Waist twist again, aim low mid.
The leg snap kick is described as
being represented in the Tai Chi form by the heel stance, where you're standing on one heel with your toes raised. Montaigue considers this to be a very powerful, surprisingly fast, and extremely difficult kick to block effectively. Again, the rotation of your waist is absolutely crucial for generating the centrifugal force that makes this kick so effective. Heel stance hides a powerful kick.
groin kick is represented by
The toe stances you'll find in the Tai Chi form, where you're primarily balanced on your toes. This kick utilizes the instep of your foot. Montaigue offers a pragmatic piece of advice here. Groin kicks can be either incredibly devastating or completely ineffective if they miss the target. Therefore, you should only attempt this kick if you are reasonably certain of landing it accurately. High risk, high reward.
back kick comes from
The old Yang style of Tai Chi, and is presented as an excellent defensive kick. It's typically aimed at the lung area or just underneath the opponent's arm, making it a good response to a punch aimed at your head, as it allows you to create distance and disrupt their attack. Defensive option.
back turning heel kick is a technique derived from
The Tai Chi short stick form. It's another excellent defensive kick that has the added benefit of being potentially used as a feint. When executed correctly, it's fast, powerful, and difficult for an opponent to anticipate. The movement involves stepping inwards, executing a block, turning your waist sharply, and then thrusting your foot inwards towards their stomach area with your heel. From the stick form, interesting.
back spinning heel kick can be utilized.
Primarily for defensive purposes, and Montaigue advises against using it as an initial attacking move unless your opponent is completely untrained. It's similar to the back-turning heel kick, but instead of thrusting directly inwards, your foot swings outwards with the centrifugal force generated by the turn of your waist, striking with the back of your heel. While it can be fast and powerful, he notes that it can also be relatively easy to block if your opponent is aware and reacts quickly. More spinning, more risk of being blocked.
Finally, regarding specific kicks, we have the roundhouse kick.
This is a very common kick in styles like kickboxing, but Montaigue advises caution when using it in a street fight due to the potential for your opponent to block it effectively with their elbows, which can be very painful for your shin. He describes the blocking method as lifting your front leg and twisting your rear heel inwards while rolling your hip to snap your foot outwards from the knee. He suggests practicing a double kick one with your leg, followed immediately by an upper body strike to get a better understanding of how to block this type of kick effectively. Beware the elbow block.
Let's now shift our focus to training methods for kicking.
Montaigue stresses that simply practicing kicks in a classroom setting is often very different from the demands of a real-world confrontation. The crucial element is developing the confidence that your kick will actually work when you need it to. He describes a valuable partner drill where you practice slow, deliberately aimed kicks to the side of your partner's knee, targeting the ligaments. You start slowly to develop accurate timing, and then gradually increase the speed as your timing improves. Eventually, the attacker will kick a medium-sized bag that is being held over the defender's leg at full force, with the defender learning to point their knee into the force of the impact for protection. Similar training drills can be used for practicing body kicks and the back-spinning heel kick, often utilizing a hanging heavy bag. Got to build confidence in impact conditioning.
He also mentions
Another effective leg kick training method involves stepping out of the way of an incoming attack and simultaneously delivering a back kick to your opponent's knee as they continue to move in. He emphasizes the importance of finding one or two leg kicks that you feel particularly comfortable with and then practicing them to the point where their execution becomes completely subconscious. In a real self-defense situation, it's generally best to rely on a few well-practiced and reliable techniques, focusing on kicking to the legs and avoiding overly fancy or complicated sweeps that could leave you vulnerable. Master a few reliable kicks.
Now let's talk about blocking kicks.
Montaigue states quite directly that kicks aimed at the lower leg are among the most difficult to block effectively. He mentions sticking hands, the Tai Chi version of this sensitivity training, as a valuable method for learning how to block low knee kicks, a topic he delves into more deeply later in the book. He describes a specific sticking hands drill for leg kicks, where two partners lightly maintain contact with each other's wrists while moving around. One person will then slowly initiate a kick towards the other person's knee, but will pull the kick back quickly. This drill, which he learned from an arnis master who used stick strikes to the legs in a similar way, emphasizes developing whole body awareness and expanding your peripheral vision. As your perception and reaction time improve, you can gradually increase the speed of the attacks. The goal is to eventually be able to evade the kick and immediately launch a counterattack with a kick of your own. It's crucial to keep this training controlled, focusing on learning and avoiding a chaotic brawl. Sticking hands for leg kick defense? Cool.
What about blocking kicks aimed above the knees?
For kicks that are higher than the knee, Montaigue suggests utilizing your palms and elbows for blocking. He specifically notes that the elbow can be a particularly formidable defense against a roundhouse kick, as it can cause significant pain and damage to the attacker's shin. For most other types of kicks, he recommends using what he calls the barging technique, which he considers to be an excellent and very realistic training method. The principle is that if you can time it correctly, moving directly inwards towards your opponent at the precise moment they launch their kick can significantly reduce its effectiveness, potentially halving the force of the impact. Elbows for roundhouse, bargain for others.
He then goes on to explain
A related training method called attack the attacking portion. This involves training yourself to receive a kick to the stomach in a controlled manner. As your partner delivers a gentle kick, you consciously imagine attacking their foot with your stomach muscles. The initial 30% of any strike is often the shock of the impact, so the goal is to move into the kick. Exhale using reverse breathing where your abdomen pushes outwards as you exhale. Actively engage your stomach muscles to attack their foot and then push them away. You gradually increase the power of the kicks as you become more comfortable with this. While it's always better to combine this with a proper block, this drill helps to train you to keep going and respond effectively even if you do get hit. Training to take a hit and respond.
He elaborates further on the barging technique.
It involves actively moving into your opponent's space and launching your own attack at the very moment they initiate their kick. This often involves using a block not just to deflect their leg, but also to move it and disrupt their balance. By timing your movement correctly, you can significantly reduce the power of their kick, perhaps by as much as 50%, and simultaneously create an opening for your own offensive counterattack, relying on your subconscious reactions, jamming the kick and countering.
For blocking front kicks, he suggests
Using a circular block with just one palm, which is a fundamental Tai Chi technique known as ping, this type of block not only deflects the incoming kick, but also allows you to immediately re-attack their kicking leg, either targeting the knee or going higher to strike their face or body, depending on the situation and your preference. Ping block works on kicks too.
And how about blocking a roundhouse kick?
Montaigue recommends using an upward block with both of your palms. This can help to protect your head and upper body. Additionally, he points out that your elbows, when used in this way, can effectively damage your opponent's shin as they deliver the kick. Following this block, you would typically barge inwards with both of your arms, delivering a downward pounding attack onto their body. Double palm block and barge.
Montaigue then advises
Experimenting with different blocking techniques to discover what works best for your own body and your own style of movement. He emphasizes that awareness is key to effective blocking, and this awareness comes from consistent and controlled practice. The goal is to develop the ability to barge in and launch a re-attack as soon as your opponent even thinks about initiating a kick. He highlights that circular blocks, like the Peng technique, are particularly useful because they allow you to seamlessly transition back into an attack, embodying the balance principles of yin and yang in Tai Chi. He also acknowledges that getting hit is an inevitable part of serious martial arts training, and is ultimately the best experience for preparing you for real-world situations, recommending the use of gloves and other protective gear during sparring sessions, awareness, practice, and accept getting hit sometimes.
He outlines a specific drill for controlled sparring.
One person takes the role of the attacker, while the other focuses solely on blocking and attempting to close the distance. The attacker's goal is to maintain their distance while delivering controlled attacks. Progression to full supervised sparring should only happen when both partners feel ready. The instructor should interrupt the sparring to address any mistakes and discuss alternative strategies. Montaigue cautions against rushing into full-contact sparring, emphasizing shorter sparring sessions followed by a return to practicing the basic techniques, as a strong foundation in the basics will ultimately improve your more advanced skills. He also believes that instructors should regularly spar with their students to provide a controlled environment for development, while student versus student sparring should be less frequent and always strictly supervised, with the session being stopped immediately if it becomes overly aggressive or competitive. The ultimate goal of martial arts training should be self and family defense, not feeding the ego or engaging in uncontrolled competition. Gradual progression, focus on learning, keep ego out.
Moving into Chapter 3, titled Sparring, Montaigue begins by discussing
Push hands as the most valuable exercise for developing heightened awareness and a deeper understanding of the dynamics of sparring. He delves into this topic more extensively in his second book. He clarifies that the goal of push hands isn't simply to win the push, but rather to learn fundamental fighting principles like balance, how to shift your weight effectively, and how to generate and apply power. Push hands isn't about winning, it's about learning.
He then introduces
Tai Chi sticking hands as an advanced and exceptionally effective method for transitioning into sparring, and he considers Pakua sticking hands to be even more valuable for learning the nuances of sparring. Sticking hands focuses on developing your abilities in close quarters combat, emphasizing the continuous cycle of blocking an attack and immediately launching a counterattack until these responses become reflexive, happening without conscious thought. He stresses that maintaining a high degree of control and sensitivity is paramount during sticking hands practice, even if it means momentarily being defeated, in order to gain a better understanding of your opponent's energy and intentions. He also points out that Tai Chi sticking hands has a different emphasis and feel compared to the Wing Chun version of this training, sticking hands for close-range reflexes.
the key principles underlying sticking hands involve
Keeping your arms completely relaxed, using only the minimal amount of muscular tension necessary to maintain your position and connection with your partner. If you are attacked, your immediate response should be to shift to yin to relax the part of your body that is being attacked, and then to re-attack using the folding principle, which is a crucial aspect of Tai Chi that he will explain in more detail shortly. He also mentions that the renowned martial artist Dan Inosanto incorporates Tai Chi principles, particularly this concept of folding, into his approach, and he recommends studying with him if the opportunity arises. Relaxation and the folding principle are key.
Let's delve into the specific sticking hands drill that Montaigue describes.
Two practitioners face each other, gently joining their palms at the wrists. You then begin to rotate your palms in a continuous flowing motion, similar to churning butter. The person whose hands are currently on top will initiate an attack towards the other person's face, who will respond by blocking outwards. Simultaneously, the person whose hands are underneath will attack the lower abdomen, which the other person will block downwards and outwards. Throughout this entire exchange, it's crucial to maintain continuous contact at the wrists. As you become more comfortable, you can begin to change the position of your palms at will, while still maintaining that wrist contact, for example, by attacking low to try and maneuver your top hand underneath your partner's. Your partner should block your attack and then immediately launch their own counterattack. Your goal should always be to re-attack as quickly and directly as possible, following their movement, taking the shortest path. If a good attack lands, the drill temporarily stops. If your block is successful, you must immediately re-attack, and this cycle continues until a solid blow, one that would be a knockout in a real fight, not just a light slap, lands. Continuous flow, block, and re-attack, maintain contact.
What are some of the more nuanced aspects of this drill?
Your palms should continuously circle and probe your opponents, looking for an opening or an advantageous position, the upper hand. You can also begin to incorporate arm grabs, locks, throws, and even kicks, drawing from the kicking techniques we discussed earlier, into the exchange. For example, if you manage to grab both of your partner's palms, you might try to bring their chest down towards their knee. If you are the one being attacked in this way, your response should be to go with their force, barge inwards to close the distance, block their knee, and potentially launch a shoulder attack, using their own momentum against them. You can also incorporate pushes and any other techniques as long as you maintain that fundamental wrist contact. It's important to keep your arms relaxed, your teeth lightly closed to prevent accidental biting, and to remain calm and focused, avoiding anger or frustration. The primary goal is to help each other learn and develop, not to win or compete against one another. Add grabs, throws, kicks, stay relaxed and collaborative.
He also mentions progressing to a stage where you move around while maintaining wrist contact.
Yes, this adds a significant layer of complexity to the drill. You now have to be aware of potential attacks to your legs, head, and body, as well as the possibility of throws, locks, and holds, and even higher kicks, all while trying to maintain your balance and that crucial wrist connection with your partner. Monty considers this to be an exceptionally valuable form of kung fu training that benefits all martial artists, regardless of their specific style, adds footwork and whole body awareness.
Now let's get to understanding the folding principle.
This principle centers on the dynamic interplay between yin and yang, yielding and asserting. Imagine someone throws a punch and you successfully block it. If their attacking arm remains in a yang state, still tense and trying to push through your block, it becomes ineffective. To re-attack, they must transition to yin, relaxing and yielding. Folding involves completely relaxing the arm that has been blocked, allowing it to almost fold up or retract using the momentum of your block. Then, in a split second, they bring that same fist back to a yang state, launching a re-attack, often while simultaneously using their other palm to block downwards to protect themselves. It's an incredibly rapid technique and a cornerstone of effective close-range fighting in Tai Chi. Relax the blocked arm to re-attack.
So how do you specifically practice the method of folding?
One partner initiates an attack with a punch, which the other partner blocks. The attacker then consciously allows their blocked arm to relax and fold up automatically into a yin state. To ensure the attacker isn't just intentionally pulling their fist back, the blocker shouldn't always forcefully block. Ideally, the momentum of the block itself should be enough to initiate the folding action. You can even practice this blindfolded to heighten your sense of feeling and sensitivity to your partner's movements. Let the block do the work, feel it.
What's the next stage in developing this skill?
You would then try to use your left palm to block your partner's blocking arm downwards, while simultaneously re-attacking with your right fist. At the same time, your right palm would come underneath your left, also blocking downwards from the top. This embodies the principle of continuous punching. You re-block whatever's blocking you, and then immediately re-attack, usually with the same fist, until you manage to break through your opponent's defenses and reach their body's third line, their core. The key is to practice this continuously, always focusing on learning and adapting. You must remain relaxed to allow for those simultaneous and subconscious attacks, continuous blocking and attacking.
The classical Tai Chi texts also offer insights into this folding principle.
Yes, there are sayings like, if the elbow is caught, circle it back and strike with the back of the fist, or the method for breaking locks lies in the wrist. These illustrate how the folding principle applies beyond just punching. For example, if your wrist is grabbed and pulled downwards, your initial reaction shouldn't be to forcefully try to pull it free. Instead, you should relax your wrist, turn it in the direction of least resistance, which is often against the opponent's thumb, and then immediately re-attack, perhaps with an elbow or shoulder strike. The same principle applies during push hands. If your wrist is grabbed, relax and turn. Timing is absolutely crucial. Staying in a yang state when you've been caught gives your opponent control. Relaxing your arm, folding, denies them that control and creates an opportunity for you to re-attack. However, you shouldn't remain in a yin state for too long either, as that leaves you vulnerable to their re-attack. The key is to transition from yin back to yang to launch your counter. If your wrist is caught due to poor timing, relax, fold, and then come in with a surprising elbow or shoulder stroke to their midsection or chest. Go with the force action that utilizes their momentum. Folding applies to locks and grabs too. Relax to escape and counter.
He then goes on to explain the DALU principle.
Dailu, often translated as big rollback, or referring to the four corners, is a principle for fighting that states, with erroneous technique, one has no choice but to use the four corners to help return to the framework of squareness and roundness. What this means in practical terms is that the techniques of pull down, split, elbow stroke, and shoulder stroke can be used to compensate for deficiencies in your primary techniques. For example, if you find yourself being pulled off balance, you should go with the force, step towards one of the corners, imaginary points around you, redirect the incoming movement back towards your opponent, and then use an elbow or shoulder strike to regain control. Montaigue explains that this principle is particularly useful when your folding technique isn't yet perfectly refined. Essentially, Tai Chi provides you with these broader techniques to fall back on while you are still in the process of learning the more nuanced underlying principles. A backup plan for when folding isn't perfect.
Let's move on to his advice on beginning sparring.
Montaigue emphasizes that actual fighting is not an easy skill to develop, and most people would understandably prefer to avoid it altogether. This is why he recommends utilizing training methods like Tai Chi and Pakua, sticking hands early on, as they allow you to get a feel for fighting in a relatively safe and non-competitive environment. This approach promotes relaxation and helps you to discover the correct way to move and apply techniques rather than just engaging in uncontrolled fighting that doesn't lead to real progress. He suggests that these controlled contact drills should gradually evolve into more open, free sparring as the contact breaks naturally. It's crucial not to rush the sparring process. If you find yourself feeling tense or overly competitive, it's a sign that you should stop and return to practicing the fundamental techniques, indicating that you're not yet ready for more intense sparring. Only when you feel comfortable, relaxed, and not threatened should you progress to free sparring. When you do start free sparring, begin easily, focusing on learning from each other and avoiding the urge to knock your partner out. Semi-contact sparring, where you apply a reasonable amount of force to specific areas without causing injury, is a good starting point. As your ease and skill increase, you can then add gloves and gradually increase the power of your strikes. He makes an important point that even in non-contact sparring, you should aim to use your full potential power so that your partner gets a realistic sense of what a full power attack feels like, even if they aren't fully receiving it. He cautions against schools that fiddle around in sparring without using real power, as this can lead to a shock when faced with a truly forceful opponent. Start safe, build gradually, train realistically, but controlled.
He also introduces Pakua sparring.
He considers this to be an excellent and safe method for learning about the dynamics of fighting. Two practitioners begin by joining their palms at the wrists over the center of an imaginary circle. He notes that you don't need to know the specific walking patterns of Pakuzong to benefit from the sparring method. You then walk around the circle, maintaining a light touch at the wrists. If you are moving clockwise with your right wrists touching, you can perform an inside turn, which involves stepping forward with your left foot, swiveling both of your toes back towards your right rear, facing the opposite direction, and changing your palm position so that your left wrists are now touching, your right palm is in a blocking position, and your left palm is poised to attack the face. The person who initiates the turn becomes the attacker, and the other person is the blocker. An outside turn is used if your right foot is forward and you can't easily execute an inside turn. This involves swiveling almost 360 degrees on your heels to face the opposite direction. Your left palm then uses centrifugal force to either attack the face or body or to block, depending on who initiated the movement. Montaigue points out that in Pakua, before executing an outside turn attack, you would typically flick your opponent's palm forcefully to your left. From this position, with broken wrist contact, you can then use any attack or defense from your repertoire, including kicks, punches, locks, holds, and throws. He briefly covers this as a fantastic introduction to the principles of sparring. After some practice with the controlled wrist contact, you can then break contact for a more realistic sparring experience. He notes that the circular movement inherently teaches you how to attack from an angle rather than relying on a direct force-on-force approach. Pakua sparring uses circular movement and specific turns.
He concludes the chapter on sparring by emphasizing
that utilizing internal martial arts effectively for fighting requires dedicated and prolonged training, but that the rewards, both in terms of health and fighting ability, are significant if you persevere. He ends with a philosophical reflection on the importance of inner mastery, suggesting that being overly elated by success or deeply disappointed by failure indicates a lack of true self-control, and urging listeners to be your own master, rather than blindly following or calling anyone else master or sifu. It takes time, be your own master.
Transitioning into Chapter 4, titled The Classics, Montaigue begins by discussing
the historical origins of most classical Chinese martial arts. He points out that many styles, particularly those that trace their lineage back to the Shaolin Temple, have tangible historical evidence, like ancient drawings and written scripts to document their development. In contrast, the internal martial arts, including Tai Chi, often have less concrete historical documentation and rely more heavily on the transmission of knowledge through lineages from father to son or from master to select disciples. These disciples would sometimes record their thoughts and insights, which eventually evolved into the classical sayings and poems that we study today, often having been translated multiple times over the centuries. Less written history for internal arts.
He notes the particularly central role of the classics in the practice of Tai Chi Chuan.
With a rich collection of sayings and poems attributed to various masters throughout its history. Even in contemporary Tai Chi circles, these classics are often used as a way to test a practitioner's understanding of the art. However, the fact that they have been translated numerous times has also led to ongoing debates about the precise meaning and application of specific postures and techniques. Classics are important, but debated.
Montaigue proposes two primary ways in which these classics can be viewed.
You can approach them literally, taking the words at their face value, or you can see them as a form of backup or validation for your own evolving understanding of the art. Montaigue states his preference for the latter. He believes that while it's essential to learn the basics from a competent teacher initially, you shouldn't remain a passive follower. Instead, you should strive to develop your own insights and ideas, continually revisiting the fundamental principles and trying to understand what the old masters themselves learned through their own experiences. He argues that to truly grasp the internal forces within Tai Chi, you need to delve into the thinking of these past masters, and that's where the classics become invaluable. Use classics to support your own learning.
He emphasizes the importance of seeking out
Translations of the classics that are as direct as possible, using minimal interpretation or poetic license in the English wording. The idea is to allow the raw essence of the original words to enter your mind so that they can offer guidance and clarity when you are truly ready to receive that particular piece of information. He also points out that the same classic can be read and understood in different ways depending on your own level of development and experience in Tai Chi. He believes that to truly make the martial art your own, you need to essentially take it back to its beginning, in your own practice, and learn the things that the original masters themselves had to learn. Direct translations, understanding evolves over time.
He states quite plainly that
The classics are our way back to understanding the original intent and application of Tai Chi, including debates about whether its initial focus was primarily martial or for healing, and the correct execution of specific postures and footwork. He believes that the answers to many of these questions are contained within the classics themselves, and if you are unable to find them, it simply means that you are not yet ready to understand that particular insight. Answers are there if you're ready.
He then shares several examples of these classical sayings from various masters.
From Yang Panhu, the son of Yang Luchan, the founder of the Yang style, we have clearly martial instructions such as hit opponent's chest with single whip, stork spreads wings, parry and hit opponent's soft areas and use no mercy, and step up parry and punch to the ribs and protect your center with close up. These examples clearly demonstrate the original martial intent behind these movements. Early classics sound very martial.
He notes a shift in emphasis with later generations of masters.
By the time of Yang Qingfu, the grandson of Yang Luchan, the tone of the classics begins to show a softening, perhaps reflecting the growing emphasis on the health benefits of Tai Chi. While later masters after him often leaned more towards the healing aspects in their teaching, Montaigue points out that most still acknowledged and wrote about the martial applications, and that fundamentally most practitioners still view Tai Chi as a martial art that also offers significant health benefits. Later classics softened, but martial aspect remained.
He also highlights the often poetic and metaphorical nature of many of the classics.
Sayings like, execute play the pipa and use threading and transforming energy, or in moving to and fro, use the folding method. In advancing and retreating, use changes and turning, require a certain level of intuitive understanding to decipher their practical meaning. However, some classics are more direct and easily understood, such as the method of cross legs breaks the softer bone below the knee. Some are poetic, some direct.
Others delve into more esoteric or philosophical concepts.
For example, if there is hardness within our softness, we will never be defeated. If our hardness contains no softness, it can never be called firm. This speaks to the crucial balance of yielding and force within Tai Chi, yin and yang balance.
And some classics even provide specific details about the execution of postures.
Such as, before slant flying, use shoulder stroke. This highlights a detail that Montaigue knows is often left out in many modern Yang-style practices, emphasizing that the shoulder stroke should be used both before and in between the two slant-flying movements. Specific technical details, too.
Montaigue concludes that
the classics of Tai Chi explain every facet of the art, from the proper execution of the form to effective strategies for street fighting. If they are truly understood and used as a resource to support your own learning and exploration, they can be an incredibly powerful tool. However, he cautions against a purely literal interpretation without questioning, experimenting, and applying the principles in your own practice, as this can lead to becoming a passive follower rather than a true master of the art. He specifically recommends Douglas Wile's book, Tai Chi Touchstones, as an excellent translation that is a must-read for any serious martial artist practicing Tai Chi Chuan. Use them wisely. Don't be a sheep.
Moving into Chapter 5, titled Long Har Ch'uan, Montaigue explains that the essence of this training method is about
Going beyond the conscious application of specific techniques, internalizing the lessons you've learned through your practice, and allowing your technique to become subconscious, a state where your body and mind move as one. He emphasizes that Long Har Ch'uan is not a set of actual fighting techniques in itself, but rather a specialized training device designed to cultivate those automatic, intuitive responses. While some of the movements within Long Har Ch'uan could certainly be used in a fight, the primary aim is to develop that level of subconscious reaction, allowing you to adapt instantly to your attacker's movements, sticking to and not letting go, training subconscious reactions.
He notes that this is often a difficult area for practitioners to grasp, especially those who come from more external or structured martial arts backgrounds.
Individuals from those styles often have a tendency to ask what-if scenarios, trying to apply rigid logic to fluid situations. Montaigue's response to this is to invite them to do what-if, to actually experiment with the techniques and see for themselves how flexible and adaptable they are as training tools, rather than viewing them as strict, unchangeable rules. The underlying goal is to teach your body to automatically shift your defense as the attacker's movements change. The concept of no form in this context means adapting your response to the specific form of your attacker's attack. It's about adapting, not rigid rules.
The first specific technique he covers within Long Har Ch'uan is
the folding principle, which we discussed in detail earlier in the context of sticking hands and sparring. Already covered that one.
Next, he introduces the vertical method.
This is sometimes referred to as Australian boxing due to its seemingly simple, direct nature, like swatting flies. Two partners stand in a relaxed, neutral stance. The attacker throws a straight face punch with their right fist. The defender responds by blocking with a stroking motion across their body using their right palm, just barely missing their face. This pushing block creates a brief window of time for the counter. The defender's body turns slightly to the left, and their left palm immediately comes underneath the right palm to take over the blocking action. The right palm then continues its downward motion to block a potential low right rib attack. This entire sequence happens almost instantaneously, with the second attack often coming very quickly. The finish involves turning the waist to the right and attacking the attacker's face with the defender's left fist, although in practice you might aim for the chest initially. Montaigue emphasizes that there are 4 distinct sounds in this sequence when performed correctly. The low block and the fist attack happen in a split second. With mastery, the entire technique takes only a fraction of a second. He recommends practicing this repeatedly on both the left and right sides. Fast, vertical blocking and countering drill.
He then suggests a way to make this drill more dynamic.
Once you've become comfortable with both sides, you can progress to doing 5 repetitions on each side without pausing to change direction. In this variation, the attacker can launch their attack at any time and from either side, and the defender must react accordingly, blocking on the appropriate side. This can then be developed into more advanced drills, but this basic exercise is excellent for developing awareness, sensitivity, and overall fighting ability. Make it unpredictable.
He also describes another facet of the vertical method.
This variation involves the attacker throwing 2 face punches in quick succession. This time, instead of blocking downwards on the second punch, the defender will block upwards. This is the only difference in the sequence. You can then make the drill more challenging by combining left and right first attacks with upper and lower second attacks, forcing the defender to react to a wider range of possibilities. Add an upward block option.
Now let's look at the lateral method.
This technique focuses on a lateral block used to defend against 2 head punches delivered in sequence. 2 partners face each other. One person throws a left head punch. The other person quickly blocks it with their right palm, keeping their left palm in a ready position underneath. As the attacker's left punch is blocked, the defender's body turns slightly to the left, and the left palm takes over the blocking action, deflecting the punch to the defender's left side. The attacker then immediately throws a right face punch. The defender's right palm is already in a ready position, so they twist their waist to the right, using their right palm to take the force of the punch to their right side, and then they strike the attacker's face with their left palm. This entire exchange happens very rapidly, especially when the attacker delivers their punches quickly. With practice, this block and re-attack sequence becomes a natural, fluid movement. You can then introduce variations where the attacker switches sides at will, forcing the defender to block left, then right, and vice versa, allowing them to develop the ability to defend and counterattack effectively against attacks coming from different angles. Lateral blocking drill.
He emphasizes that with consistent practice.
This block and re-attack sequence will become a natural, instinctive response. It trains you to utilize any part of any technique quickly and efficiently while you're in motion, allowing you to defend against a wide variety of attacks, making it automatic.
Next, he introduces the concept of multiple attacks.
This is an important part of Long Har Ch'uan that focuses on teaching you how to attack your opponent multiple times in quick succession. The underlying principle is simple. If you are capable of striking someone effectively even once, why not follow up with more strikes to ensure they are incapacitated? Continuous striking.
Can you describe the method?
One partner attacks with a straight face punch. The other partner blocks on the closed side, the side of the attacker's body that is closer to them, using their left palm. The left palm then strokes the attacker's arm downwards as the defender's right palm comes underneath to take over the blocking action, while the defender's left hand simultaneously strikes the attacker's face. This is then reversed. The right palm strokes down as the left palm takes over the block and the right hand strikes the face. This continues in a rapid alternation, becoming very fast and fluid with dedicated practice, alternating blocks and strikes.
He also offers some important tactical advice.
He emphasizes that you should always try to block onto the attacker's open side, the side of their body that is less protected and further from their center line. However, he acknowledges that this isn't always possible, so it's also crucial to know how to block effectively on their dangerous side, the side where they might have another weapon or be preparing a follow-up attack. He also points out the importance of keeping your non-attacking palm in a guarded position, even if it isn't actively blocking at that moment, just as in the vertical blocking techniques we discussed. Finally, he notes that if your opponent is significantly taller than you, attacking their face might not be the most effective strategy, as it puts you within their closer range. In such cases, striking acupuncture points under their arm might be a more viable option. Block, open side, guard, adapt, target.
Montaigue mentions that this has been a brief introduction to Long Har Ch'uan.
He states that much of the more advanced aspects of this training method are taught in person. He also offers a straightforward piece of advice based on his own experience. If Long Har Ch'uan doesn't seem to be working for you, the issue is almost certainly in how you are performing the techniques, not in the techniques themselves. If it's not working, it's probably you. Ha!
Transitioning into Chapter 6, titled Some Other Techniques, Montaigue covers
a collection of proven techniques that he teaches in his advanced boxing class, which he describes as no frills and highly practical. The guiding principle in this class is that if a technique doesn't consistently work in realistic training scenarios, it is discarded. Only the most basic, single technique movements are retained, as he believes this no technique method is what will ultimately be the most reliable in a real confrontation. Practical, tested techniques.
First up in this chapter is wrist grabbing.
Having already discussed methods for breaking free from a wrist grab, Montaigue now focuses on training methods to actually grab an opponent's wrist after you've delivered a punch. He notes that this is one of the most challenging things to do effectively, especially against someone who understands and utilizes the folding principle we discussed earlier. He points out that many martial arts schools that emphasize wrist locks don't often practice the initial grabbing action in a realistic context, trying to catch a fast, snapping punch. Montaigue's method is designed to at least give you a chance to learn this difficult skill. He believes that if you can successfully learn to grab an opponent's wrist after striking, it opens up a whole new area of defensive and offensive possibilities. Learning to grab a punching wrist.
Can you describe his training method for wrist grabbing?
Your partner throws a right punch at a medium pace. You respond by blocking upwards using the ping technique, that springy outward block. Immediately after your block, you attempt to grab their wrist with your right palm. He acknowledges that this is tricky and requires a lot of practice. The key is to use a clamping motion with your palm, but with a slight slipping action. Don't try to grab their wrist outright. Instead, let your palm slip slightly down their forearm as your grip tightens. This all happens in a fraction of a second. If this feels relatively easy at that medium speed, your partner should gradually increase the speed of their punch until you reach a point where you can no longer consistently grab their wrist. You should then continue to practice at that speed until you can successfully make the grab a significant percentage of the time. Block, slip, grab. Practice at the edge of failure.
Next, he discusses some ping techniques.
He highlights that the fundamental ping block can lead to a variety of effective follow-up techniques. One example he gives is choi, often translated as inch energy. This is a simple but potentially devastating technique that utilizes the power of your waist to deliver a sharp jerking motion to the grabbed wrist, which can potentially put the opponent's neck out of alignment or dislocate their shoulder. A further development of the Choi technique involves incorporating a knee strike, which can then be expanded to include a palm strike to the face as part of the sequence. The elbow can also be used very effectively as a follow-up after a peng block. He also describes how a peng block can transition into an arm lock, which can then be advanced into a more complex figure 4 hammer lock. Finally, he mentions a useful takedown maneuver that originates from the peng block and utilizes the opening posture of the Tai Chi form. This involves blocking with peng and then quickly moving behind your opponent to execute a takedown. Montaigue emphasizes that while peng is a foundational technique that opens up many possibilities, mastering these follow-ups requires a significant amount of dedicated practice. Peng leads to choi, locks, throws. Needs practice.
Finally, in this chapter, he touches on techniques from Long Har Ch'uan.
He reiterates that Long Har Ch'uan is primarily a training method designed to develop specific fighting skills and reflexes, but that it also contains some techniques that can be directly applied in a self-defense situation. As an example, he describes a scenario where an opponent attacks with a right fist from your closed side. Your response would be to step to your left and execute a block. Your right palm then takes over the blocking action from underneath your left arm, while your left fist simultaneously strikes the opponent's axilla, their armpit area, which contains vulnerable pressure points. He also alludes to certain training techniques that combine elements of Long Har Ch'uan with other martial arts, but he doesn't go into specific details about these combinations in the book. Direct application from the training method.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into Erle Montaigue's insights on using Tai Chi as a fighting art. We've explored a vast range of topics, from the foundational importance of the form and the surprising martial applications hidden within its slow movements, to the advanced training methods like Long Har Ch'uan and sticking hands, and the profound wisdom contained within the Tai Chi classics. Quite a journey.
It's truly been a fascinating exploration of how Montaigue bridges the often perceived gap between Tai Chi as a gentle exercise and its potential as a practical and effective method of self-defense. He really encourages you, our listener, to approach this art with an open mind, to explore what resonates with you personally, and to discover what works best for your own body and your natural instincts. Find your own path.
Absolutely, and it really makes you consider that intriguing concept of no technique, the idea of training so deeply that your reactions become almost intuitive, perfectly adapting to the specific circumstances of a situation without conscious thought. That's a high-level goal.
This also raises some really important questions about the connection between the dedicated and often meditative physical practice of the Tai Chi form and its latent, powerful potential for martial application. And of course, the deeper, often enigmatic meanings woven into the fabric of the Tai Chi classics offer a lifetime of contemplation and continued learning. So much depth there.
So, as you digest all of this information, here's a final thought for you. Consider how the fundamental principles of yielding and adapting, which are so central to Tai Chi as a fighting art, might also offer valuable insights for navigating the various challenges and unexpected attacks that we all encounter in our everyday lives.
If this deep dive has sparked your curiosity, we strongly encourage you to explore Erle Montaigue's book further, or perhaps even consider taking the first steps in your own practice of Tai Chi Chuan to experience these concepts and principles firsthand. Definitely worth exploring more.